Once again, for those members of the public who are here for a matter on the agenda this morning, if you wish to speak underneath public comment, there are slips for that in the back on the table as you enter. If you're here for one of the 3 public hearing matters to be held this morning, we're asking you and you wish to appear or register in favor, in opposition, or as an interested party to the matter, please fill out a slip and give it to the staff or bring it forward to me. Or whoever.
Okay.
Good morning, and thank you for your.
And you can never get blood. You can never get blood because it doesn't go away. Is that right? And it shows up like 5 or 6 years later. Really, so. Yeah, it's a yellow fever. It was probably 5 or 6, 4 to 5 years later. Never realized that. I got really sick. I went in there, nurse took my blood pressure, and she was the doctor said, maybe you better do this, I'm getting better. I was so dehydrated. So that vaccine didn't work. No.
Morning, everyone. It is 9:01. With that, I will call to order the regular meeting of the Land Resources and Environment Committee for Tuesday, July 26th, 2022. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes.
You have an agenda that was posted. It has not been modified or amended in any way. Moved by Ebro to adopt the agenda for today's meeting as posted, seconded by Spencer. Any discussion or comment on the agenda? Any discussion or comment on the agenda? Before we vote on adopting the agenda, please, I received notice that Supervisor Lohr will not be joining us this morning. He is excused. I did not, to my recollection, receive any notice that Supervisor Kinsman, the Vice Chair, will not be joining us, so hopefully he will join us soon. But with that, you've heard the motion and the second to adopt the agenda as posted for today's meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. We have an agenda. Minutes for our July 14th meeting were attached on Granicus. Val?
Move to approve the minutes.
Moved by McAuliffe to approve the draft minutes. Seconded by Spencer. Any discussion or comment on the draft minutes? Any discussion or comment on the draft minutes? If not, you've heard the motion and the second to approve the draft minutes for our July 14th, 2022 meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. The minutes are approved.
Marty, my mic is not on. Thank you.
Item number 4, public comment. Do we have any member of the public who is not here from one of the 3 public hearings who would like to provide comment to the committee this morning? Is there any member of the public who is not here for one of the 3 public hearings this morning that would like to provide comment to the committee this morning? Seeing or hearing no requests, public comment is closed. Communications, Lisa.
So there is the July monthly pollen attached to Granicus for each of you to take a look at. And then just as a side note, I know there's been multiple emails with the committee attached to them for petition 19-2022. So
Thank you. Any communications from the committee? If not, then let us move on to business items. Item number 6, Land Resources and Environment. Review and approval of vouchers. Lisa?
So there are two sets, one in the amount of $11,999.87, and then coming from Parks at $600.
Val?
Move to pay the vouchers?
Moved by McAuliffe to pay the vouchers as presented, seconded by Spencer. Discussion or question on any of the vouchers? If not, you've heard the motion and the second to pay total LRE invoices in the amount of $11,999.87, total parks vouchers in the amount of $600 even. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. The vouchers are paid unanimously. The motion passes. Item number 7, discussion and possible action on a resolution authorizing the Director of Land Resources and Environment to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Sauk Soil and Water Improvement Group. Lisa?
So the department has been working with a producer-led watershed group known as SWIG. They again made application for funds from DAPCAT to continue with their efforts. Looks like around $20,000 for next year. As part of those funding, though, we need to have an MOU with that group as to who's done SWIG what and how the funds will actually be distributed. So that's what you have before you. This is something that we've been doing every 3 years.
Thank you. Any questions from Lisa on the matter? Val?
Move to approve, please.
McAuliffe moves to approve the resolution, seconded by Puckhammer. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion on the motion? If not, you have heard the motion and the second to approve a resolution authorizing the Director of Land Resources and Environment to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Sauk Soil and Water Improvement Group and to forward that full resolution to the board for their approval. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. The motion to approve passes unanimously. Item number 8, discussion and possible action to approve the 5-year review of the Sauk County Land and Water Resource Management Plan.
Okay, I'll get started. So, every 10 years, we have, our Land and Water Resource Management Plan, and we call it our LWRM plan. It's more or less a 10-year work plan for land conservation, and it looks at goals and opportunities within the county to, protect and improve soil and water resources. So our last plan was approved in December of 2017, so it covers 2018 through 2028. And one of the things that has to be done is a 5-year review. So this plan goes before the State Land and Water Conservation Board, and they approve or disapprove it. And we have to have this plan in place in order to receive funding from the state. So we get a staffing grant from the state that helps pay for about 1.5 positions in our office. And then we also receive funding from the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection for cost share for conservation practices. So we have to have this plan in place in order to receive those funds. So next week, we will be going before the state board with the same review, and one of the requirements is that we present this information to our committee beforehand. So I'll just quickly run through some of the questions that they ask in the 5-year review. So the first one is to ask about some of our accomplishments that we've made over the last 5 years. So for us, a big workload is nutrient management plans within the department. A lot of that comes with the farmland preservation program, but also our farms that have manure storage facilities. So that is a significant workload. And also, since the plan was approved in 2018, we've really seen increased interest in rotational grazing throughout the county. So we've had a number of funding sources that have helped folks convert their land to rotational grazing. And we've also had a lot more interest in grazing, pasture walks, and workshops that are specific to grazing. We also purchased a rainfall simulator in 2018 that helps demonstrate what an intense rain event can do on different land uses. So many of the committee members have seen that in action, and we hope to show the new members at our field day in September. But that's been a really great learning tool for folks to see what, intense rain events can do to land uses. And then also our outreach and education efforts have really expanded in the last couple years. We've had some staff changeover since our plan was approved, and so we've had an opportunity to kind of reevaluate what education programs we offer, and we've been able to kind of get rid of some of our old ineffective programs and add in some new better suited programs. So that's been really exciting too. And just as you heard, the Sauk Soil and Water Improvement Group, or SWIG, we've been really involved in their program and helping them be a producer-led watershed group in the county. So those are some of our accomplishments. Some areas where we've had some struggles, I would say, we've been really trying to promote soil health practices like cover crops and no-till and rotational grazing and things like that. But we've certainly had less interest in cover crops and no-till. And I think part of that might be because, since 2015 or so, the federal department, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, has been really effective at offering cost share to people to install cover crops. And they've kind of grabbed that low-hanging fruit, and so we're kind of struggling to get to the next level of, adopters of that practice. So that's been one area that we've struggled in. And then also, we've done less stream bank stabilization over the last 3 years. A previous staff member was really involved in stream bank stabilization projects, had a lot of job approval authority to do those kind of projects. And since we've had changeover in staff, we just haven't been doing as much of those kind of projects in the county. Additionally, they just updated that practice standard, and it's a little bit more difficult for us to get those types of practices installed. So I kind of anticipate us doing less of that in the future. They also ask us how do we implement our priority farm strategy to implement performance standards on our farms. So, our first way of implementing the performance standards or basic farm, management standards on our farms is to first go through the farmland preservation program. So we're going out to those farms and making sure that they're meeting those performance standards. But we've also worked with, our intern last summer put together a prioritization map that kind of shows us which watersheds we should really focus on implementing those performance standards in. So that's what we will plan on doing in the future. We've also been working, of course, with the farms that have manure storage facilities on them to implement the performance standards on those farms as well. So one of the last question they ask about is like, how will we change our strategy moving forward for the next 5 years of this land and water plan? And I think what we've decided to do is work a little bit more on outreach and education. We feel like that's maybe our strongest way of encouraging folks to change management practices on their property. So we feel like continuing to work with the soil and water the SWIG group, and then also working on our county farm. So the county farm we feel is a really valuable asset for us to use as a a learning tool for landowners in the county, and so we see that as a big opportunity for us to do more of that outreach and education. So I think that is kind of it summarized. As I mentioned, we do have to present this in front of the Land and Water Conservation Board next week. So Marty and Lisa and I will be presenting that to them. And if it's approved, then we don't go back again until, well, it'll be the end of 2027. And at that time, we would do a whole new 10-year plan. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I have put the review form on Granicus, and then one of the other things that they ask us to provide is our annual work plan, so 2021's work plan with our accomplishments, and then our 2022 work plan with our goals. How the department report works that you guys get at the first meeting of each month, it's almost identical to what we report to DATCAP. It's very convenient and easier and streamlined for me to put all that information into your guys' report, and then to also report that same information to Department of Agriculture.
Questions by the committee? Randy, please.
I'd just like to compliment you because you're evolving the plan during the 10 years as technology changes, and technology is changing so fast out here in the farming. If you write a plan and adopt it in 10 years from now, it's going to be ancient history. So I want to compliment you on that.
Any other questions or comments on the presentation? Any other questions or comments on the presentation? If not, a motion would be in order to approve the 5-year review and plan, and to approve it for presentation to DATCAP next week. Randy?
I'll make that motion to approve it.
Moved by Puckhammer, seconded by Eberl. Discussion or comment on the motion? Any discussion or comment on the motion to approve? If not, you've heard the motion and the second to approve the 5-year review of the Sauk County Land and Water Resource Management Plan, and approve it for presentation to DATCAP by staff next week on August 2nd. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. The motion is unanimously approved. It is 9:17, so as chair of the Land Resources and Environment Committee, I will call the public hearing portion of the July 26th meeting to order at this time at 9:17. I am Marty Krieger. I am chair of the Land Resources and Environment Committee. At this time, I will have the other committee members introduce themselves.
Dennis Polifka, District 23.
Robert Spencer, District 21.
Lynn Eberl, District 3.
Valerie McCullough, District 31.
Randy Puckhammer, I'm a citizens member strictly for conservation purpose.
Thank you, committee. And now, if I can have the staff that will be assisting us this morning introduce themselves, please.
Lori Dignan, LRE. Lisa Wilson, LRE.
Tate Hillman, LRE.
Brian Simmert, LRE. Brian Desmond, Corporation Counsel.
Thank you. Let me now explain the procedures for the day for our audience. First, the staff will read the particular notice for the public hearing that we are dealing with. After that, LRE staff will provide the background and history of the request. That will be followed by committee members having an opportunity to ask questions of the staff based on the information that is provided. The applicant will then be allowed to give testimony. The applicant will be followed by the town. If we have a representative, they will be allowed to give testimony. Then those wishing to speak in favor of the request, followed by those wishing to speak in opposition to the request, and then those wishing to appear as interested parties. When all those groups have had an opportunity to testify, I will verify by asking 3 times if there is anyone else that wishes to speak on the particular matter. Speaking from the audience is not allowed because we must identify those speaking on the recording equipment. As I have stated numerous times, there are registration slips on the back table, and those wishing to speak must sign a registration slip and present it to myself or the staff. Please limit your speaking time to 3 to 5 minutes. I do have a phone, so I will be timing. I will set it at 5 minutes. I understand that we have some legal representation here this morning. If the legal representation appears with one of the parties, they will be given 10 minutes total, or 5 minutes each. Once all those wishing to speak have done so, I will close the public portion of the request and the committee will go into deliberation. Once the committee makes its decision, we will move on immediately to the next case. Any questions on the order for today's public hearings? If not, then let us begin with item number 9A, petition 18-2022. Petition to consider amending conditions of approval for a conditional use permit 6-2020, originally approved by the Land Resources and Environment Committee on May 26, 2020, and documented in the decision letter addressed to Kingdom Storage, LLC, pertaining to CUP 6-2020, pursuant to 7.04, paragraph 4, subparagraph D for mini warehousing. The lands affected by the CUP is located in the east 1/2, southwest 1/4, section 3, town 10 north, range 6 east in the town of Sumter, with a tax parcel identification number of 034-0779-00000 and owned by Kingdom Storage, LLC. Has this hearing been properly noticed?
Yes.
If the staff would read the notice, please.
Please take notice that Land Resource and Environment Committee of the Sauk County Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing on July 26, 2022 at 9:15 a.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard in the Sauk County Boardroom, West Square Building in the city of Baraboo to consider. Petition 18-2022, a petition to consider amending conditions of approval for conditional use permit 6-2020, originally approved by the Sauk County Land Resource Environment Committee on May 26, 2020, and documented in the decision letter addressed to Kingdom Storage, LLC, pertaining to CUP 6-2020, pursuant to section 7.040, paragraph 4, subparagraph D for mini warehousing. Said conditional use is located in the town of Sumter, Sauk County. Lands affected by the proposed rezone and conditional use are located in the east 1/2, southwest 1/4, section 3, town 10 north, range 6 east, town of Sumter, and is further described in petition 6-2020. Part of the tax parcel identification number is 034-0779-00000.
Thank you. Morning, Brian. If the staff would proceed with the report.
Good morning, Brian Simmer, Planning and Zoning Manager for LRE. So I'll present the staff report on this proposal along with the staff recommendation. So petition 18-2022 is a request by Kingdom Storage, the applicant, to amend certain components of an original conditional use permit 6-2020 for a mini warehousing storage facility. Specifically, as part of the approval of petition 6-2020, there is a specific condition that states that conditional use shall be established and constructed in accordance with the plan specifications and information provided as part of the record to the Land Resources and Environment Committee on May 26, 2020. So on May 26th, there was an exhibit or plan sheet labeled Plan Sheet C101, which is Exhibit A of your staff report today, which specifies certain components of this proposal that would be made part of the proposal once the construction is completed. The applicant is essentially requesting the removal of a number of components to this original plan sheet, as well as the addition of a number of components. And I'll highlight each one of those and refer to Exhibit A, which you have on Granicus, to offer clarity to that. So the first component that the applicant is requesting is to remove the requirement to plant 7 deciduous trees along Highway 12. And you can see on Exhibit A, it's labeled as change trees. The second component is to remove the requirement that a gravel driveway area be constructed on the west side of the storage building. So the west side of the storage building is that part of the driveway where you see removed gravel in Exhibit A that runs parallel to East Avenue. The third component is to remove the requirement that an open style perimeter fence be constructed around the facility. If you look at the plan exhibit, it's hard to see, but there is a proposed fence around the entire perimeter of the facility. And the applicant is requesting that a second driveway be added to East Avenue on the north end of the operation of the warehouse facility. And finally, the applicant's requesting to remove a row of trees between a church facility, which is directly to the north of the storage facility, to offer views into the facility. So with that, we have 3 components that the applicant's requesting to remove from the original approval, and a request to add an additional driveway, and to also remove trees between the church and the storage facility. So in looking at the proposed use, we had recommended that the applicant work with the town to gain an understanding of what the town is comfortable with, Town of Sumter, in terms of the requested changes. And the Town of Sumter did consider the proposal at their July 11th meeting and did recommend that none of the changes be made, that the original requirements of CUP 6-2020 stand and be enforced by our department. Along with that, the town had offered that in lieu of the perimeter fence, that a quote-unquote living fence be planted, which would consist of trees as well as various vegetation. So they did offer that option to the applicant. The county staff had recommended to the applicant that they work with a professional landscaper to design a landscaping plan to have a living fence in lieu of the requirement that there be a perimeter fence that both meets the requirements of county ordinances for vegetation screening, as well as what could meet the requirements of what the Town of Sumter is requesting for a living fence. So the applicant had appeared before the Town of Sumter with a proposed landscape plan that was not done by a professional landscaper, but was presented nonetheless. And the landscaping plan that was presented to the Town of Sumter did not meet the county ordinance requirement, and therefore also did not meet what the town was asking for. And the town had rejected the landscaping plan and has made it known that they now prefer that the fence be put up around the facility, which was part of the original proposal. So in Exhibit E, you can see the town correspondence regarding the matter in terms of their decision. We did notice the public notice requirements, which included residents as well as landowners in the area, including the Bluffview development. And with that, and based on the fact that staff has worked with the applicant to try to meet the requirements of the original conditional use permit, which have not been met, and that the Town of Sumter has not recommended that the committee allow any changes to the original conditional use permit that was granted in 2020, staff offers 3 recommendations. 1 to approve, which staff does not recommend, 1 to disapprove, which is what staff recommends in this case, and 1 to modify and approve, which staff does recommend. And I'll read the staff recommendation into the record, which is disapprove, petition 18-2022. Motion to disapprove the requested amendments to the conditional use permit 6-2020 as shown in Exhibit A of the staff report for CUP Petition 18-2022, based upon the findings of fact and conclusion of law subject to the staff analysis and conditions, as noted herein, and in recognition that the town of Sumter does not support the requested amendments, and restating the original findings of fact and conclusions of law stated with conditions of approval in the decision letter CUP 6-2020 and dated May 26, 2020. So basically, this recommendation of approval reinstates or makes it clear that the original Plan Sheet C-101 stands in terms of what the applicant is required to do and implement on the property. And it refers again back to that original conditional use permit approval, which was 6-2020. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you. Questions on the staff report by the committee? Any questions at this time on the staff report by the committee? Dennis, please.
Yeah, so to clarify, Brian, is the staff recommendation is to leave it as it is, the initial agreement.
So we have the conditions of the original CUP 6-2020 stand.
Okay, thank you.
Lynn, please.
Brian, did the owner offer any rationalization for why they were asking for these changes?
I guess I would defer to the owner who did sign up to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on the staff report, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
If the applicant would come forward, please. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Scott Stifler, 114 Pilgrim Drive, Wisconsin Dells.
You have 5 minutes to speak to the committee regarding your request.
Oh, thanks for hearing me. So when we completed this project, a couple of things. The road from Highway 12, or the road from the highway there up until the trailer park was considered private in 2019 when we first started this. Throughout the build process, in late 2021, they declared it a township road, and we had already had those two entrances already in place. We were going to amend it here at the city. The DOT or the township actually took it back from us. We're the owners of that, so that's the second driveway entrance. We were getting feedback from tenants saying it's a lot easier to turn around in that space. It gives you a clearer visibility for safety reasons. Lots of children in the neighborhood, so we felt like that was a better fit. Also, what it didn't state was we had people from the town show up at that first hearing stating they wanted that fence removed off the original plan because it turned out a pretty beautiful building, and people didn't want it to look like an industrial, and they said it would be more aesthetically pleasing if we didn't have a security fence, and it would just give out the vibes that it was an unsafe neighborhood. And it's not. It's a beautiful building, beautiful neighborhood, and we wanted to please the people surrounding us, and we had local business owners show up for that as well. Again, we've been experiencing a lot of negative feedback from the town of Sumter, very unethical things, and so we would just like you to consider, allowing us to remove the fence and also keep that secondary driveway. Everything else, we're up for negotiations. It was just simple. In construction, obviously everything's fluid, things change, and this is one of those things. I think we can all experience the economy and labor and as far as materials, getting materials. So in the time when we were building, we were having problems, obviously getting materials that we needed there and so forth. So, but that's all I had to say really, and I appreciate you guys' time.
Questions for the applicant? Any questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We do have a representative from the town present this morning. If you would please state your name and address and position with the town for the record.
Robin Meyer. I'm on the Plan Commission for the town of Sumter. I'm also here on behalf of the Bluffview Sanitary District, where I'm the administrator.
And your address is?
E11097 Kings Corner Road, North Freedom.
Thank you, Robin. Please proceed.
This has been an issue before the town for quite some time. The original construction did not comply with the plans that were provided. The changes were made without any consultation with the town. One of the parts, the town road that is there, was it was under discussion with the attorney, and had they contacted us before putting in a second driveway, we would have told them that our ordinance only allows for one driveway, so if they're going to put in a second driveway, it'll be in violation of the town of Sumter ordinance. The other concern is the Bluffview Sanitary District water and sewer easements in between the facility and Highway 12. The driveway has been The driveway has been placed directly over the water line. The water line was installed in 1940s by the Army, and there is concern about what we will have to do if there's a water leak there. Where the trees were to be planted is above a sewer line, which could be a little bit of an issue, but we'll deal with that if it comes up. We can always handle that. The biggest part here is that all the changes were made without any consultation with the town. It would create a violation of the town ordinances. At our meeting about 6 weeks ago, Kingdom Storage came and talked to us, and in a compromise, the town offered the living fence in lieu of the fence, provided all the other conditions stand. No effort has really been made to comply with the other issues, and it's been operating for a year and a half without being built to the specs provided to both the town and to the county.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you. Could you just describe the timeline for this? I'm curious as to when was the original permit issued and when was this constructed?
May 26, 2020 is when this committee approved the CUP.
Okay, thank you.
And the construction occurred during the following probably 9 months, and it opened the following spring, in the spring of 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Hearing none. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this request? Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak in opposition to this request? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes, member of the public who wishes to appear as an interested party to petition 18-2022? Is there any member of the public who wishes to appear as an interested party to this request? Seeing no requests, as we move towards closing this public hearing, Is there any member of the public who wishes to provide additional comment to petition 18-2022? For the second time, is there any member of the public who wishes to provide comment to this request? For the third and final time, is there any member of the public who has not had the opportunity who wishes to provide comment to petition 18-2022? Seeing or hearing no requests, before we close the public hearing, members of the committee, do you have any questions of the applicant? Any questions of the applicant or staff on the staff report? Does the committee have any question or disagreement with the findings of fact or conclusion of law contained in the staff report? Seeing nothing, no requests from the committee, the public hearing portion of this matter is closed. Committee is in your hands. Dennis?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would move to disapprove petition 18-2022, which is to disapprove the requested amendments for the conditional use permit of 6/2020. And this is based on findings of fact and conclusion of law.
Motion by Plivka to disapprove petition 18-2022, seconded by Eberl. Discussion on the motion to disapprove. Go ahead, Dennis. You have the floor.
Yeah, I think the town has raised some legitimate concerns with this from the standpoint of the living fence. Myself personally, I would not be in favor of planting trees over a sewer line. I think that just is asking for problems. And I have some concerns with the fact that the applicant has not followed the original conditional use permit.
Thank you. Val?
Thank you. I would like to offer an alternative. I think that there's room for some negotiation. I drive by this building every time I come to Baraboo. And I think that a living fence would be a vast improvement over any, I would assume, a chain link fence. And I think there could be some movement on the driveway. Not necessarily the new road, but I think there's enough here for an honest compromise with both parties having an improvement in that. I myself have been in this position many times where folks come to us asking for forgiveness rather than permission beforehand. So I understand that frustration. I would like to offer that.
Other discussion on the motion to disapprove? Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to know, did the township take away that second driveway since it's a town road because they only allow one driveway to the town road? Or is there a particular reason they took the second driveway away?
Unfortunately, the public hearing matter of this.
Oh, sorry, never mind.
This matter is closed. Dennis, is there any member of the committee who wishes to speak in the first round before I recognize a committee member for the second time? Dennis, go ahead, please.
Supervisor Spencer, in regards to the second driveway, I know many towns have ordinances based on the number of drives coming out onto a road. Supervisor McCall, I have no problem with a living fence. I have a problem with a living fence over a sewer line. And I think that that can add into some unforeseen costs that could come down the line to the sanitary district.
Other discussion on the motion to disapprove? Go ahead, Val.
Thank you. Just in response, Dennis, I think trees can be moved.
Other discussion on the motion to disapprove? Lynn?
Just a comment on the driveway. If the town has a driveway ordinance limiting driveways to one, it seems to me that generally there's an exception in there. The town board can make an exception, grant an additional driveway, which would not necessarily be a plan commission matter. So that might be something that could be taken up directly with the town board rather than having it be part of the CUP.
Other discussion by the committee? Dennis, go ahead again, please.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that this had been all presented before the town board.
Other discussion on the motion to disapprove? Seeing or hearing no requests, you have heard the motion and the second to disapprove petition 18-2022, amending conditions of approval for a conditional use permit 6-2020, originally approved by the Land Resources Environment Committee on May 26, 2020, on lands in the town of Sumter and owned by Kingdom Storage and LLC. This disapproval is based on the findings of facts and conclusion of law contained in the staff report. All in favor of the disapproval signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed?
Nay.
I believe the ayes have it. 4 in favor, 1 against. The petition is disapproved. We move on to item 9B, petition 19-2022, a petition from Scott Lytle, agent for Parallel Infrastructure, to consider a conditional use permit pursuant to 7.038, paragraph 9, subparagraph I, for a mobile tower siting on land owned by Donald and David Fulkerson. The said conditional use is located in the town of Baraboo, Sauk County. Lands affected by the proposed conditional use are located in part of the northeast 1/4, southwest 1/4 of section 15, town 11 north, range 6 east, certified survey map 575, lot 1, town of Baraboo, Sauk County, with a tax parcel identification number of 002-0445-00000. Has this matter been legally noticed?
Yes.
If the staff would read the notice, please.
Please take notice that the Land Resource and Environment Committee of Sauk County Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing on July 26th at 9:15 a.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard in the county boardroom at Sauk County Westford Building in the city of Baraboo to consider petition 19-2022. Agent of Parallel Infrastructure to consider conditional use permit pursuant to S 7.038, paragraph 9, subparagraph I, for a mobile tower siting on the land owned by Donald and David Fulkerson. Said conditional use is located in the town of Baraboo, Sauk County. Lands affected by the proposed conditional use are located as part of the northeast corner, southwest corner of section 15, town 11 north, range 6 east, CSM 575, lot 1, town of Baraboo. Sauk County Tax Parcel Identification Number 002-0445-00000.
Thank you. With that, committee, due to the fact that you have received numerous emails on this from both in favor and against, I have asked our corporation counsel to, I guess, provide a preliminary address to the committee regarding what they consider this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Brian Desmond. I'm Corporation Counsel for Sauk County. Today before you, you have this permit for a cellular tower. You are considering this as a conditional use permit. When you are considering a conditional use permit, the law requires that your decision be based upon what's called substantial evidence. In the law, substantial evidence means facts and information other than merely personal preferences or speculation directly pertaining to the requirements and conditions an applicant must meet to obtain a conditional use permit and that reasonable persons would accept in support of a conclusion. So I wanted you to be aware of that standard as you, I guess, review with Tate the information he's going to provide to you, and plus any other information that's going to be provided to you either by the applicant or anyone opposed to their proposal here for the tower today. You should know that your decision is presumed to be valid. That substantial evidence is less than a preponderance of the evidence, but more than a mere scintilla of evidence, and more than conjecture and speculation. I think that's really what we need to focus on here is mere conjecture and speculation. You see this a lot where someone will come up and say, well, I just don't like this project, therefore you should deny it. That's not substantial evidence. This isn't, as they say, a popularity contest. Your decision has to be based on the information and the facts that have been provided to you. In that same regard, you should be aware that if you get evidence that's competing against one another, it's your job to weigh that evidence, weigh the credibility of who's presented that evidence, and render a decision that you believe which evidence is more probative on the issue. So you are the ultimate fact decider when it comes down to the evidence that's presented here today and how you believe that evidence should be interpreted for the purposes of your decisions. I would recommend that when you do make any sort of motion here today that you do so and cite to what evidence you believe supports your proposition. If this ends up in court, the court will review the entire record, but as I've indicated, you may get competing takes on the information and facts that are provided here today. So it's important that your determinations make a good record so the court, if called upon to review this matter, can review it and determine how you made your decision here today. If this does end up in court, you should know that the court doesn't search to see if they would make the same decision that you did, but they search the record to see that you had substantial evidence to make the decision that you did come to today. So I just want you guys to be aware of the proper standards, and lady, I apologize, of the proper standards that you're looking at here today. I think you will see, Tax Granicus, there is a lot of information that's been provided already for you to consider and review. I'm sure further information will come into you today as we proceed through this public hearing. So if there are questions, I am certainly available to assist you to the best of my capabilities here today. And I would note under the law that the application before you today has been deemed complete by the Planning and Zoning Committee, which starts the clock running for the 90 days to have this hearing on the application. That's why you're here today considering the matter.
So as our corporation counsel said, for the record, so I am going to emphasize at this point that in my mind, I think that no matter what the decision is, this may very likely go to a court. That being said, due to the fact that the record needs to be reviewed, I'm asking the committee members to speak into the mic and clearly so that the record is audible and can be reviewed. Any questions of Corporation Counsel at this time? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
With that, we move on to the staff report. Welcome, Tate.
Good morning. Okay, this request is from Scott Littell, agent on behalf of Parallel Infrastructure, the applicant, and Donald Fulkerson, the property owner, to consider a conditional use permit for the following sections: 7.038, subparagraph 9, paragraph 9, subparagraph I, and subchapter 11. Property is located along US Highway 12 in the town of Baraboo. The background: the applicants are proposing the construction of a new 255-foot tall mobile tower within a about 28,000 square foot area on land they propose to lease from Mr. Fulkerson. The overall size of the property being approximately 6.83 acres, which is Exhibit A and Exhibit C. The structure is designed with the capacity to support antennas and transmission lines for up to 3 additional carriers. The tower is designed to have a fall radius of 243 feet from the base of the structure, which is Exhibit O. The fall certification exempts the applicant from the 330-foot side yard setback as would be required pursuant to Section 7.096 and Section 7.140, Paragraph 6. The closest residences are between 787 and 825 feet away, with the closest one being to the northwest. The applicants have liability insurance as well as federal approval. Analysis: the current zoning is agriculture. Relevant plans include the Town of Baraboo Comprehensive Plan, and the surrounding area is characterized by primarily agricultural uses, and a mobile tower service is defined as a resource use in Section 7.038. Adjacent zoning and land uses are as follows. The property to the north is zoned agricultural and is cropland and wooded. The property to the south is zoned agricultural and the land use is cropland and wooded. Property to the east is zoned agricultural and is cropland and wooded, and the property to the west is zoned recreational commercial and has a recreational use. Parking: there is sufficient space for flex parking during tower construction. Septic and sanitary: there is no sanitary system required for this use. Well, there is not a well required for this use. Property access: the property will have proposed access from US Highway 12. The applicant shall secure an access permit from the Wisconsin DOT prior to issuance of a land use permit for the use. Lighting: there will be obstruction marking and lighting standards at the highest point of the tower per federal aviation requirements. Stormwater: no further permits are required by the Wisconsin DNR or Sauk County. Zoning ordinance standards and criteria: in reviewing a conditional use, the agency shall follow these standards, Section 7.151, Paragraph 5, and Section 7.151, Paragraph 6. A, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the proposed use may not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare of the occupants of surrounding lands. The findings: it does not appear that the proposed use on the property would endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. The tower meets required setbacks with the engineered certification of the tower fall radius of 242 feet. The tower setback off the road right-of-way approximately 293 feet, and the closest residence is approximately 740 feet away. B, the use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be compatible and be appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity, and that such use may not change the essential character of the area by substantially impairing or diminishing the use, value, or enjoyment of existing or future permitted uses in the area. The findings: the surrounding area is characterized primarily by residential and agricultural uses. The proposed mobile tower will be placed 293 feet from US Highway 12, which is made of concrete, and in a crop field with required vegetative screening. In reviewing the conditional use, the agencies shall consider the following: A, the erosion potential of the site based on topography, drainage, slope, soil type, and vegetative cover, and mitigation of erosion potential. The findings: slopes are limited and there is existing vegetative cover located around the parcel. Erosion control best management practices are recommended during construction, but there are no long-term foreseen issues. B, prevention and control of water pollution, including sedimentation and the potential impacts on floodplain and wetlands. The findings: there are no nearby wetlands and the closest water body is located over 1,000 feet away to the northwest. Erosion control best management practices are recommended during construction to mitigate any potential water pollution or sedimentation, and there are not any foreseeable concerns for impacts to floodplain or wetlands. C, whether the site has adequate utilities, including, if necessary, acceptable disposal systems. The findings: the applicants are proposing to route utilities underground from US Highway 12 right-of-way to the property within the proposed shared access and utility easement. D, whether the site has access to roads and highways. The findings: the property currently has access off of US Highway 12 for agricultural purposes. The applicant shall work with the Wisconsin DOT to secure the necessary access permit prior to construction for the change in use and provide copies of permit approvals to Sauk County LRE. E, whether the site has suitable ingress and egress. The findings, the driveway access is currently used for agricultural uses. The applicant should contact the Wisconsin DOT to review the access and provide any modifications required by the DOT and provide written communication from the DOT to Sauk County Land Resources and Environment for verification. F, whether the site is designed to minimize traffic congestion and a potential effect on traffic flow. The findings, there are no foreseen traffic issues after construction has been completed. However, there will be increased traffic flow during construction. Subchapter 11, Class 1 Co-location Standards. Pursuant to the Sauk County Ordinance, Section 7.038, Paragraph 9, the use shall be subject to the conditions of Subchapter 11 of the Sauk County Code of Ordinances. In reviewing the conditional use, the agency shall consider Section 7.140, siting and construction of new mobile service support structures and Class 1 co-locations. Number 5, height. Height shall meet the terms of Sauk County Code Chapter 41 and any other airport zoning ordinances. The findings, the proposed tower is not located in airport zoning. The nearest airport is Sky High Airport at approximately 0.8 nautical miles. Due to the closeness of the airport and the requirements in Section 7.140, Paragraph 7, Subparagraph H, which requires notification to any airport within 5 miles, the applicant has agreed to provide a copy of this notification, which is Exhibit K, the affidavits of notice to nearby airports. 6, setbacks. All structures must meet the commercial and industrial zoning setbacks of Section 7.096 and road setbacks of Section 7.098, unless an applicant provides the county with an engineered certification showing that a mobile service support structure, tower, or existing structure is designed to collapse within a smaller area than the setback or fall zone area required. The county may still require the setbacks required by the section if the county provides the applicant with substantial evidence that the engineering certification provided is flawed. The findings, the structure meets all commercial setbacks with the inclusion of an engineer's certification, which is Exhibit O. 7, limitations, conditional use permits for siting and construction of any new mobile service support structure and facilities or Class 1 co-location shall only be granted provided the following conditions exist. A, no lease or deed restrictions on the property that is proposed for the location of a mobile service support structure or mobile service facility shall preclude the owner or lessee from entering into agreements, leases, or subleases with other providers or prohibit co-location of other providers. The findings, the lease has been provided and complies, which is Exhibit P. B, the application has obtained Federal Communications Commission license and registration numbers if required. The findings, the federal approval and registration has been provided, which is Exhibit M. C, the applicant provides a finding of no significant impact, environmental assessment, or environmental impact statement approved by the Federal Communications Commission if required. The findings, a screening report and checklist has been provided by Edge Consulting Engineers, which is an Exhibit R Phase 1 ESA report. D, the applicant provides a copy of a determination of no hazard from the Federal Aviation Administration, including an aeronautical study or other findings if applicable. The findings, a statement from the Federal Aviation Administration has been provided. Lighting will be required to be installed within 5 days of construction, reaching its pinnacle, which is Exhibit J. E, the applicant provides plans indicating security measures such as fencing, access, lighting, and any other requirements. Findings, the applicant will be building an access road from US Highway 12. There will be a chain link fence surrounding the tower site. Lighting on site will be to Federal Aviation standards, and staff is recommending the inclusion of the recommendations from National Fish and Wildlife in the NEPA report, which is Exhibit T. F, for new mobile tower service support structure, the applicant has obtained a report prepared by an engineer licensed by the state of Wisconsin certifying the structure design of the tower and its ability to accommodate additional antennas. The findings, the structure is designed with the capacity to support antennas and transmission lines for up to 3 total carriers. G, the applicant shall provide proof of liability insurance coverage. Findings, the proof of liability insurance has been provided, which is Exhibit Q. H, the applicant shall provide copies of an affidavit of notification indicating all operators and owners of airports located within 5 miles of the proposed site have been notified by certified mail. The findings, the applicant has provided copies of affidavits of notification to the operators and owners of the 3 airports located within 5 nautical miles of the proposed site location. A search of surrounding airports and their respective distance have been included, which is Exhibit K. I, the new facility is designed to promote site sharing so the space is reasonably available to co-locators and so that telecommunication towers and necessary appurtenances, I messed that up, I'm sorry, including parking areas, access, and utilities are shared by site users whenever possible. Staff findings, the structure is designed with the capacity to support antennas and transmission lines for up to a total of 3 carriers. In reviewing the conditional use, the agency shall consider section 7.144, structural design and environmental standards. 1, mobile service support structure, antenna, and facility requirements. Would you like me to read through all of that?
Does anyone wish him to read that part of the report? You all have it? Please proceed, Tate.
Okay, so the staff findings that the proposed tower meets these requirements. Site development, number 2, a lease parcel intended for the location of new mobile service facilities, mobile support service structures, and equipment compounds shall be located to permit the expansion for mobile service facilities and to serve all potential co-locators. The findings, the site has been designed with co-location capabilities. Vegetative facilities shall meet the vegetative screening requirements of section 7.043. Staff findings, the applicant is proposing planting approximately 14 4-foot-tall white fir around the complex with approximately 17 4-foot-tall blue point juniper and 13 emerald green arborvitae spaced roughly 12 feet apart around the northern and western base of the tower, which is Exhibit T. This plan meets the requirements of section 7.043. Fire protection, all mobile service facilities shall be designed and operated with all applicable codes regarding fire prevention. The findings, the proposed structure will conform to electrical code. 5, noise and traffic, all mobile service facilities shall be constructed and operated in such as a manner as to minimize the amount of disruption caused to nearby properties. To accomplish this, the following measures shall be implemented for all mobile service facilities, except exempt facilities as described under section 7.139. A, noise producing construction activity shall take place only Monday through Friday, excluding legal holidays between the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., except in times of emergency repair. B, backup generators shall be operated only during power outages and for maintenance and testing purposes. Finding the noise and traffic did not appear to be addressed in the proposal, but there are no foreseen issues after construction. Town Plan Commission and Town Board recommendation. The Town of Baraboo Plan Commission and Town Board held meetings on the request and recommended denial of the conditional use permit application. A copy of a letter provided by the Town of Baraboo has been included with the minutes as Exhibit D. Should the Land Resources and Environment Committee choose to approve the conditional use permit, staff would recommend the following conditions be considered. General conditions that apply to all conditional uses approved per section 7.151, paragraph 5. A, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the proposed use may not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare of the occupants of surrounding lands. B, the use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be compatible and be appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity, and that such use may not change the essential character of the area by substantially impairing or diminishing the use, value, or enjoyment. Recommended conditions that apply to petition 19-2022. C, the approved conditional use shall strictly accord with the plans, specifications, and information provided to the Land Resources and Environment Committee on July 26, 2022, and made part of the official record by the committee. D, the approved conditional use shall not commence until all approval conditions are satisfied and the Sauk County Land Resources and Environment Department issues all necessary Sauk County land use permits. This shall include any existing structures that are yet to be permitted by the Sauk County Land Resources and Environment Department. F, on-site driveway and parking spaces shall be maintained in a safe and nuisance-free condition. A fire number shall be applied for and issued for the property. G, vegetative screening shall be installed within 365 days of completion of the tower and shall meet all standards listed in section 7.043 of the Sauk County Ordinance. H, the tower shall take into consideration the standards pursuant to section 7.144, structural design and environmental standards of the Sauk County Zoning Ordinance, including the consideration to the noise and traffic stipulations listed. I, if the tower is not operated for a period of 12 months, it shall be considered abandoned. If the tower is abandoned, abandonment procedure will be carried out pursuant to section 7.145. J, if the tower is removed, requirements of section 7.143 shall be met, including returning the site to its original condition or a condition approved by the department. K, the applicant within 45 days from the issuance of land use permit must provide a telecommunications facility information report, which includes the following information. 1, the name of the mobile service support structure's owner. 2, address. 3, phone number. 4, proof of bond as security for removal. 5, the support structure height. 6, current occupancy, if applicable. 7, the number of co-location positions designated, occupied, or vacant. L, to mitigate adverse impacts to migratory birds, the tower will be constructed with flashing L864 or L865 red lights, and bird diverters will be installed on all guy wires at 30 feet apart. M, the applicant shall contact the Wisconsin DOT for the change in use of the existing access point for an agricultural use to discuss the addition of a mobile tower and to provide any modifications required by the DOT. An approved access permit or communication from the DOT exempting the project from a permit shall be required. N, tribal notification shall be made prior to construction per the NEPA recommendation to allow for tribal monitoring during any ground disturbance. O, failure to comply with the standards and conditions of this conditional use permit may result in the revocation of said permit and order for removal of any structures or discontinuance of any use thereby permitted by the conditional use permit by the Land Resources and Environment Committee of the Sauk County Board of Supervisors. P, if a conditional use is not initiated by securing a land use permit or for the change in use within 365 days of approval, the conditional use is considered void unless an extension is requested and granted by the zoning administrator prior to the original expiration date. Should the use or activity cease for 365 days or more after first being established on the property, the use will be deemed to have been terminated. Public notice, July 15th, certified mail was sent to the Town and Plan Commission. July 15th, it was mailed to adjacent landowners. July 7th and 14th, it was published in the newspaper, and then today is the LRA committee. There are exhibits A through U, which were posted on Granicus, which were the attachments as part of the application, and then there are additional exhibits V, W, and X, which I have handouts for each of you here. Exhibit V is a letter and map of coverage change from Mr. Paul Jonas. Exhibit W is email communication from Claude Krawczyk, which was received 7/25/22. And Exhibit X is email communication from Jason Lasky, which was received on 7/25/22.
Thank you. Any questions by the committee on the staff report at this point? If we can make sure that Lori gets a copy of those exhibits, please. Any questions by the committee on the staff report at this time? I guess not. Would the applicant come forward, please?
I am plugged in.
If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Certainly. My name is Jim Germain. I'm the Regional Vice President for AT&T in Wisconsin. My address is 316 West Washington Avenue, Madison, Wisconsin.
If I can hold, is Scott here?
Yes, sir.
Well, I asked for the applicant. You're listed on the agenda as a petition from Scott Lytle.
Yes.
I need to hear from you at this time, please.
Good morning. Sorry about that with the limited time. We didn't know if I would have time to speak. My name is Scott Littell. I'm the applicant on behalf of Parallel.
If you'd state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, sir. Scott Littell,
Yep.
Littell, 1026 South 57th Street, West Dallas, Wisconsin.
You have my 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Yes, sir. Again, my name's Scott. I'm the applicant on behalf of Parallel Infrastructure. Part of my job is to find interested landowners who would be willing to have a cell tower constructed on their property. So before we got all this information that the staff just gave you, we are given a search area and a search ring. This particular case is just over a mile. So I looked through the Sauk County GIS system, looked for possible candidates that are not in floodplains, not in wetlands. And in February 2021, we mailed out 22 letters to property owners who own 32 parcels in that 1 mile search area. 5 landowners responded with interest, so I scheduled site walks on their properties and walked it with them. I choose the 3 best locations from these 5 properties for an extensive report that's submitted to our radio frequency engineering team, RF. They're the ones that drive these projects. And then they pick the best of those 3 sites that works best for their network. We then negotiate a lease with the landowner, and after the lease is signed, we start the zoning process, which you can see is quite detailed and quite extensive. So we've submitted all that information to you folks for your dissemination. I would like to introduce Jim Germain. He's the AT&T Regional Vice President.
Thank you, Scott. I'll be very brief. This morning you'll hear 2 perspectives, one of which is a company interested in trying to improve its coverage, improves its offering of technology, and reduces cost. The other is here to maintain a monopoly. So let's talk a little bit about coverage. Now, when we build a tower, we don't take that lightly. It's a very expensive proposition. There's got to be a lot of value in doing so. Now, the legislature recognizes that a new tower does impact the community. And so they always encourage co-location. But they recognize in certain situations co-location may not work. And in front of you is the actual state statute that does require an applicant to meet certain criteria in order to justify it. I won't go through that, but as you can see, it says that we need to provide an explanation as to why the co-location will not generate the same mobile service functionality, coverage, capacity, is technically infeasible or economically burdensome. So let's talk a little bit about the coverage that we're seeing today. What you see in front of you is actual coverage propagation map. Now, this is what we use to design our network to provide the best possible coverage to first responders, such as the Sauk County Sheriff's Department that uses FirstNet, which rides on our network, or to the citizens or visitors of Sauk County. If you take a look at this and you flip back and forth, you can see the difference between the existing coverage for the current tower at SBA and the proposed location. Clearly, we are picking up coverage and filling in key areas of the area. And as you can imagine, your first responders, your sheriff's department that is out trying to communicate needs as best coverage as possible. What about technology? We want to be able to provide your citizens with the most advanced technology as quickly as possible. The new parallel agreement does just that. And I'll give you a quick analogy. You take a look at leasing an apartment. If you want to change out your TV, go to a larger TV, you don't have to renegotiate your lease. You can go in, change that out. It's the exact same thing with the parallel agreement. When we want to bring in the newest technology, newest equipment, we change it out. Under the current SBA arrangement, we have to go through and renegotiate everything. That delays it, that increases costs associated with it. Now, we are not asking you to renegotiate an agreement with SBA. Absolutely not. Actually almost 4 years ago, we notified SBA of our desire to enter into a new arrangement because the lease was starting to come due. We didn't hear from them. They didn't express an interest in establishing a new agreement with us to bring that thing into more current times. Now, what you're going to hear is that they're going to say, well, this is the first time we've heard of it. Or they're going to say, you know, what they're showing you in these propagation maps, well, the alignment of the antennas are not right. Well, actually, I'm kind of glad that they brought that up last night.
Sir, if I can interrupt you just a minute.
Okay.
That was the 5-minute mark.
Okay.
But as I stated at the beginning, I'm going to forward that you and the applicant are appearing, you're the attorney for the applicant, or appearing with them. So jointly, you get 5 minutes each or 10 minutes together. The same will be afforded, the same opportunity will be afforded those if presented in opposition.
Okay, that's fine.
You have 5 more minutes.
Then I will actually turn it over to our attorney. Oh, very good. I'll just take a minute. The last thing I was saying is, last night we got a propagation map that seemed to suggest that because the orientation of the antennas were not the same, that somehow AT&T was trying to deceive you. Well, actually, I'm glad that they presented that to you, because what it does is not only demonstrate that SBA's true intention is to kind of confuse the record here, but it also indicates their limited knowledge of RF frequency. I'm not an RF engineer, but I talked to our RF engineers this morning, and what they said is, if you believe what SBA is saying, that would suggest that we intentionally aligned our existing antennas on the SBA tower in order to generate poor coverage. That's absolutely not true. It wouldn't make any sense to us. When we design a tower, we want those antennas to provide the best possible coverage. The orientation of the SBA, the AT&T antennas on the SBA tower are designed for the best possible coverage. Clearly, moving to the new tower, we're going to orientate those antennas differently to generate the best coverage. So I just share that with you, but I'm going to turn it over to Paul right now. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Jim. My name is Paul Jonas. I am an attorney with Michael Beston Friedrich. The address, I'll give you my office address if that's okay, would be, just moved, 790 North Water Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Please proceed. You have 3.5 minutes left.
Thank you. So as you've heard from both Scott and Jim, this has been a long process. Appreciate all of you absorbing the large amounts of information up to and including exhibit, I think it was X, that we've provided you. So lots to digest, clearly. I'm not going to rehash much of what you already heard here because we are in limited time. But the reality is that co-location has been extensively considered. All of the statutory requirements under 660404, Wisconsin Cell Tower Siting Statute, have been met. The 3 prongs for co-location, just to remind once more, are: is the existing agreement economically burdensome? Is it technically infeasible? Or does it not provide the same coverage? The reality is, with regard to economic burden, the new lease is millions of dollars less expensive just in base rent, let alone the additional extensive cost to put new equipment on the tower, which of course benefits all the local citizens, first responders, etc. So AT&T, large tower developer, maybe not the most sympathetic parties when it comes to economic burden, but the law is the law. And whether I like it or this committee likes it, we all have to follow the law. And the reality is there is an economic burden. But that's not even the most significant thing in my mind. To me, the infeasibility, the technical infeasibility of the extensive and onerous and expensive process of swapping out new equipment for old on the existing tower, which SBA refuses to renegotiate, and anything you hear to the contrary is untrue, because if they really were serious, they've had 4 years to do it. And instead, they show up today, as they do in many municipalities around the state, to fight us the way they're fighting us today. So co-location has been considered. Having considered co-location and deemed it infeasible for all the three reasons, and by the way, we only need one of the three, but we've met all three, as your corporation counsel mentioned, substantial evidence would be required to deny the CUP. And in this case, there simply has not been any substantial evidence provided, and the evidence would have to be consistent with 660404, which prohibits things like denying based solely on aesthetics, based on an opinion about coverage, which is somewhat related to what we're just talking about here. Very quickly, I understand the town recommended denial. What I will say about that is that the town took the position that they were not bound by either your ordinance or by state law because they had no ordinance. I'm not passing judgment on that legal analysis, but what I'm saying is that their decision on the record at the meetings was not based on your ordinance or on state statute. Of course, this committee has to follow the law. A few things with regard to SBA very quickly. They're going to note that the tower is very close, they'll say, within 0.9 miles. In this world, 0.9 miles is far, especially with the topography of this area. 0.9 miles is about as far as I've ever seen it. They're going to mention the EcoSite case. Very different facts, residential neighborhood. They got it wrong, frankly. It's a Court of Appeals case. And also Act 67, which is substantial evidence, was not in effect at that time. Can I say one more thing, please?
Please finish.
I will do so, sir. From a different jurisdiction, I'm going to read you verbatim the words of a commission that approved about a dozen towers moving off of SBA. It's not this jurisdiction, but the facts are very relevant, and I think I couldn't say this better myself. SBA's only interest is to remain AT&T Mobility's landlord, whether by complicating the proceeding or by engaging in rent negotiations within the proceeding. The commission is under no illusion that SBA's request to intervene in this case is anything other than an attempt to protect its monopoly as the owner of the only tower in the area. The commission acknowledges that SBA indicated through public comment it offers to lower the rent on an existing tower. However, the commission affords this comment little weight, given the timing that it was made. The commission notes this offer was made approximately 7 months after the filing of the application, which only served to disrupt and delay the proceedings. In this case, 4 years later, we're here today with SBA, having had those 4 years, saying we'd love to renegotiate. It's not true, and I'd ask you not to get...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We do have a representative from the town here who registered as an interested party, but this is, as town clerk, if you're representing the town, this is your opportunity to speak, sir.
Hello, I'm Morgan Olson, town clerk for the town of Baraboo. The municipal address is 101 Cedar Street in Baraboo. I only have to say that the town's role in this is purely advisory. The town board's decision was enumerated in the letter, Exhibit D, I believe it is. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee has. I will add one more thing that Mr. Jonas pointed out, that the town board did not take into consideration ordinances or state statute. I can see how we'd feel that way. We actually tabled the matter for a month because we wanted to get our council involved. Unfortunately, our council couldn't attend the July 11th town board meeting due to COVID reasons. So she sent correspondence to the town board members, and what she said was specifically to take into consideration state statute and county ordinances. So that's what the town board based its denial on. But yes, everything else is enumerated in the letter, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Do we have any questions by the committee for the town of Baraboo clerk? Any questions by the committee for the town of Baraboo clerk? Thank you, Morgan.
Yep.
We will now move to those wishing to speak in favor of this request. I do have a request to appear from a Don Fulkerson. If you would come forward, please. Good morning. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Donald Fulkerson. I live at W9944 McGowan Road in Lodi.
Okay.
And I am here on behalf of two things. I own the property, coincidental, but I'm also here on behalf of the Wisconsin Association of Campground Owners. And being that this is the cell service is becoming a really, really big thing in the camping industry. I own a campground. There are a few other campgrounds here today, and they're all from the Baraboo area. And we're all going to tell you about, we're going to give you some information on what better cell coverage can do, or as far as the dollars and revenue that come from the tourism industry, which is what Devil's Lake and Baraboo is all about. I've got the North American Camping Report here. This is where most of my data has come from, as well as the annual Wisconsin State Park Attendance Report. And we can equate the amount of campers that come to Devil's Lake every year to this region. The last what we have is 2.6 million in 2018, and then of course we had COVID for a couple of years. There are a lot of people that come here. The average person, according to the North American Camping Report, that camps spends $38 a day in the area that they're camping. That equates just for the Baraboo area itself, based on the old numbers from pre-COVID, that's $49,400,000. That's what kind of money tourism is bringing to this area because of Devil's Lake. Now, I'm a private campground owner, and I'm here speaking for a couple other ones as well. My neighbor on the property is Donna Misey. She's over there. They own Green Valley Campground. And Merrimack's Campground would be affected by the coverage of this tower. They unfortunately could not be here. The gentleman from Fox Hill Campground is here, and he can come and speak in a minute. And the people from Skillet Creek, also right below the bottom of the hill. We would all be affected by this tower being put in, and it would be very helpful. There are applications that people are using on their telephones now with technology we talk about that guide people throughout the campground. Breadcrumb trails is a word that a lot of hunters use. These apps cannot be used without good quality cellular coverage. So the dollars that are generated are a really big deal for the economy, and I just wanted to make the board aware of what kind of revenue the camping industry is bringing to this area. So let's see here, where are we at? The average age of the campers that are coming now are under 40 years of age, which means they're all using technology. That trend is going to continue for the next generation, and the people are going to get younger and younger, and technology is going to become more important for guidance information, social media posts, as well as using the directional GPS coordinates when they're out backcountry hiking. We want to keep those younger generations of campers coming to the Baraboo area and spending their money. And that's really what I wanted to pitch to you guys, is the revenue that's coming from tourism in Baraboo, a lot of it is driven by Devil's Lake. Used to be the circus. Circus isn't the biggest show in town anymore. Now it's Devil's Lake. And better cell phone coverage would certainly help this new generation of campers and tourism that is coming to Baraboo. So that is what I have to say today.
Thank you, sir.
All right. And all of these facts can be, the dollar numbers, things like that, they can be downloaded from the RVIA, which is the Recreational Vehicle Industry Association, as well as the Wisconsin Association of Campground Owners website, if you want to fact check any of that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My next registration slip is from a David Fulkerson, who I guess representing the landowner, but you wish to register in favor of this petition, or do you wish to speak, sir? Do I have a David Fulkerson here?
I do not wish to speak.
But you wish to register in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. The next registration slip I have to speak or appear in favor is from Aaron Eichhorst.
Aaron Eichhorst, E11371 North Reedsburg Road.
E11.
371 North Reedsburg Road.
Thank you.
Baraboo, Wisconsin. I own Fox Hill RV Resort and Campground in Baraboo. We are the largest campground in the Baraboo area, serving thousands upon thousands of guests that come into the Baraboo area to basically spend money. And like the gentleman back over here said earlier today, with technology changing 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance, it's nice to be able to have certain technology to help benefit those people spending those dollar bills here in the Baraboo area. From a perspective of ownership, we're 4 miles north of here, and a lot of our guests come to the Baraboo area to enjoy a good time. With 3 state parks within 12 minutes and a couple off branches like Pewett's Nest, Parfrey's Glen, etc., a lot of people are put into situations where they rely on different apps and technology to benefit themselves, or needing to call emergency services, a friend, a family, etc. And being out in those state parks, it's nice to be able to know that the cell phone service could be as best as it can. 4 miles north is where I'm located. I've always jokingly said how I can be 4 miles from the most visited entertainment town in the state of Wisconsin and have the crappiest cell phone service there is in 2022. Same with now fiber optic Wi-Fi, which is growing in our area. I'm keeping it short and sweet from a beneficial standpoint to thousands of people that come from all over in multiple different states to this area to spend money to help benefit the community of Baraboo. I deeply, deeply think that it doesn't matter what cell phone company it is, being able to have a 2022 type lifestyle for younger generation people, even older generation people. I've got people that come by me that work from, because of COVID, they're working obviously from campers. They're also doing schooling from campers. Kids aren't going to school as much as being on the road. And you guys might not know those statistics, but from our perspective, a lot of people working on the road, going to school on the road. It's nice to have the best technology available for them so they can help benefit themselves. And the great news of having them working here or going to school here is they're spending money in this community. So I'm keeping it short and sweet. I also have to run, but that's pretty much my wrap on everything when it comes to people coming to this area and having the best technology they can for our city. Especially since those people are the ones spending all the money to keep all the businesses here afloat.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
That is the last registration slip that I have for those wishing to appear in favor of this petition. Is there anyone who has not spoken, who is present, who wishes to appear in favor of petition 19-2022? Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak in favor of petition 19-2022? If not, we will move forward. I do have 2 registration slips of parties that wish to appear in opposition to this request. First, from Claude Groschitz. Is it, okay.
Good morning. My name is Claude Krawczyk. It's Krawczyk. I'm an attorney with O'Neill, Cannon, Holman, DeYoung, and Lang in Milwaukee. Our address is 111 East Wisconsin Avenue, Milwaukee 53202.
Please proceed. You have the floor.
All right. I represent SBA Communications, which owns and operates the existing cell tower on the west side of Highway 12, where AT&T is now located and has been located for many years. SBA acquired that tower in 2015 with AT&T already on it as an existing tenant. So SBA inherited and assumed the existing lease that the prior tower owner had with AT&T, and we've honored that lease for these last 7 years. We've worked with AT&T to accommodate their needs, not only at this site, but at many other sites. We've done amendments with AT&T on various sites throughout the state of Wisconsin as recently as 2021 to accommodate their build-outs, their technology changes. All of these companies change their facilities over time in order to meet the current technology that's available for service. So what I want to impress to you is we've been told that SBA is not willing to negotiate and that we've had 4 years to do this. What Paul is referring to, Paul is my colleague and friend, by the way. We work together at times and sometimes we're on the other end of things. So what he's telling you is 4 years ago is AT&T has asked SBA to renegotiate a nationwide agreement for thousands of sites. That has been under discussions by people above my pay grade and above Paul's pay grade at a national level, but they haven't reached that agreement. In the meantime, SBA has worked with AT&T on individual sites and is willing to work with AT&T on this individual site to accommodate their needs. So what I want to impress upon you is not only are we willing to talk, we have done it in other sites, and we will do it in this site. So I want that to be on the record. So there's no misunderstanding that we're just trying to prevent something from happening here. More importantly, you need to know that AT&T really isn't trying to enhance their service. The testimony from the campground owners was amazing. My wife and I decided to make a weekend out of this, and we hiked in Devil's Lake State Park the other day. Didn't have very good phone service, I'll admit it. I've got Verizon, didn't have very good phone service. This new tower that's proposed is not going to change that. It's not going to provide any better service at the Devil's Lake. It is going to provide somewhat of a different service. And I want you to understand what search ring means. The statute says if there is another feasible site within the search ring, the applicant has to show why they can't provide the same mobile service functionality, coverage and capacity is technically infeasible or is economically burdensome. This statute's only from 2013. It's hardly been interpreted by courts yet. We don't know what economically burdensome means, but I don't think it means what AT&T believes it means in this case. So let me explain search ring. Imagine that this room had no windows and no ceiling or wall light fixtures. And imagine that we had to provide light to everybody in this room by a single floor lamp, that it was telescopic, could be raised and lowered, and had 3 bulbs that could be oriented in different directions. That's what cell service is all about. The ideal place to put that floor lamp in this room, this dark room, would be next to the lady drinking the Pepsi or the Dr. Pepper over here, because that's smack dab in the middle of the room, right? That's the middle of the search ring. But that's not a very practical spot because people are walking in and out of that aisle all the time. You could provide the same mobile service functionality, the same light to this entire room by locating that floor lamp in front of Sheila Carver's desk right over here, or the desk where the box of Kleenex is, two down from this lady. By orienting those light bulbs to the room to provide the light that you want. This is what a search ring is all about. And in their affidavit that they provided from Mr. Tim Brenner, dated January 4th, 2022, they don't discuss mobile service functionality at all. They talk about economic burdens. And what they're after here is to try to renegotiate a lease nationwide with SBA.
Sir, since I afforded Mr. Jonas about a minute of additional time to finish his statement,
All right.
I'm going to afford you that minute.
Do I get 5 or 10 though? I'm the only one here speaking on SBA's part.
It's 5 minutes.
All right. I thought maybe I got 10 minutes. All right.
You have a minute.
All right, anyway, to bring this home, what SBA would be willing to do in this case and in every other case that we've talked about is to negotiate a lease for this site. Renegotiate a lease for this site. I'm telling you that publicly. The service that they're telling you they can provide from this new facility can be provided from SBA's existing facility. They are not going to expand their coverage area significantly. What this is about is economic burdens, and I'm going to end with the only state law, the only interpretation of the state law that's on the records from any court, and this is the EcoSite case that Mr. Jonas referenced. And I'm going to paraphrase. In the concurring opinion, it says, the fact that AT&T wants to save money and Parallel wants to make money is not a legitimate reason to ignore the state statute and the zoning ordinance. We have a state statute that requires co-location. If you allow this, you're going to nullify that requirement throughout the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have a registration slip to appear in opposition from Jacob Franzen. Good morning, Jacob. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Jacob Franzen. My address is E11227 Sky High Road.
You have the floor. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'll just make this kind of short, quick, and sweet. Clearly, we have a battle between two larger companies, AT&T, a multi-billion-dollar telecommunications company, and a company that owns a lot of towers around the nation. So I'm speaking on behalf of the people who live in the area. I've spoken with 6 of the 9 homeowners listed on the back of the notice who actually live in the area, not just landowners who own the property and might live in neighboring towns or neighboring states. We're obviously very concerned about the potential for another tower. We have an existing tower on Lehman Road. And as the Corp Counsel mentioned earlier, we really need to have substantial evidence that this new tower would bring a tangible upgrade over the existing tower. So we saw a map with an increase in coverage by the gentleman from AT&T, which again is their own data. It might be statistically significant, but is it tangibly significant? And that's one of the questions I have. And they're also talking about an economic burden. I'm not sure what qualifies an economic burden for companies of that size, but I worry as a business owner right next door to this, whose property is renowned for looking out over those valleys. People come take pictures, whether it's for weddings, families, stuff like that, with having another tower right next door to us. We've already got one sitting on the bluff. So I would really just like to encourage the committee to look at all the facts and the data, and is there going to be a truly tangible increase in coverage? Or is this something that realistically we just have two giant companies fighting over and the landowners are just getting stuck in the middle? We're the people who live right next door. And so I think we just need a little consideration of that. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. That is the last registration slip that I have. Is there anyone, any other member of the public in attendance who has not had the opportunity to speak, who is in opposition to this request? Is there any other member of the public present who has not had the opportunity to speak in opposition to this request, who wishes to provide comment at this time? Seeing no requests, we move on to those who wish to appear as an interested party to petition 19-2022. Is there any member of the public who wishes to appear as an interested party to petition 19-2022? Seeing or hearing no such requests, before we close the public hearing for the first time, is there any member of the public who has not had an opportunity to provide comment who wishes to speak to petition 19-2022? For the second time, is there any member of the public who has not provided comment who wishes to speak regarding this request? For the third and final time, is there any member of the public who has not had an opportunity to provide comment to petition 19-2022, who wishes to speak at this time? Seeing no such requests, committee, before we close I close the public hearing portion of this matter, do you have any questions of the staff or the applicant on this request? Dennis, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to have some clarification on this coverage map as to just what is being covered now. We got the 3 red circles that show what's supposed to be improved. And
who wishes to speak to that on behalf of the applicant?
Would you like me to come forward?
I would, please. Once again, if you would state your name and your position for the record, please.
Certainly. My name is Jim Germain. I'm the Regional Vice President for AT&T in Wisconsin. I appreciate the question.
Let Mr. Polivka ask his question, please.
yeah, could you clarify this particular map here with the 3 red circles? We've got the different colors.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? Does the green mean that's what's being covered now, or?
Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate your question. And I need to preface it, but I'm not an RF engineer, but I have been involved in telecom for 35 years, and I've been able to learn a little bit over the years. And what you're seeing there is a representation of our propagation maps. And as I mentioned earlier in my testimony, we use these to actually design our network. And when we look at the coverage, we assess it based on the decibel loss. What type of signal strength are we going to be providing our customers? In those colors, those different shading gives you a different perspective on what type of coverage levels that you'll typically expect with inside a building, inside a vehicle, when you're walking down the street. So what we're trying to do is provide an accurate representation of exactly the current coverage that we get from the existing SBA tower, as well as the proposed location. And as you correctly noted, and as was discussed earlier today, we do see an improvement from the new tower. And some of that's due to the technology we're placing out, some it's due to the orientation of the antennas, some of it's due to the height and the topology of it. But when it comes down to it, our goal at AT&T is to provide the best possible coverage to our customers. And we're very, very honored to be actually serving as the nationwide provider for FirstNet Network, which is a nationwide network dedicated to first responders, Sauk County Sheriff being one of those that has selected that. So we have a very large responsibility in making sure that we can provide the best possible coverage to those first responders when they're using the FirstNet network.
Well, okay.
Go ahead, please, Dennis.
Yeah. This map,
Mm-hmm.
the different colors of green, does that show what's being covered now?
Do you mind if I approach you?
No, by all means.
Very good. And I apologize, I wish I had it back up on the screen, but what you're seeing here, if you take a look at the two maps, kind of, let's see, do you have the second one, or the first one? If not, I can, well, what we're showing in these three circles here is the increased coverage that we're gonna pick up with the new tower. So what we're showing, if you were able to see the first map, which is the existing coverage, and this one with the new tower, you'd actually see these areas filled in with this darker green color, meaning that we're actually gonna be able to add coverage where it is limited today. So that's what these three circles are representing. And if you'd like, if you have a moment, I could bring it up on the screen where you can actually see back and forth. I'm not sure if you've got the first existing coverage map that we provided, but that's what you're seeing in those three red circles is the improvement that we're picking up. So we're getting a little bit on the west side of Devil's Lake. We're getting some to the north of the tower and a little to the south. Those are the three locations that, and it's a little bit more than that, but that was the ones that I wanted to point out to you as three specific areas where you're seeing noticeable improvement in coverage.
So you're saying that where these circles are, there's limited coverage right now?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. And this new tower will enhance the coverage in those three areas. Okay. Exactly. Yep. And that's really our goal, is to try and improve coverage. That's why we're investing so heavily in our network across the country, is to make sure that when customers are using our devices, be it first responders, be it regular customers, that they can have that call and it isn't a drop call or any interference whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, sir, the map that you are looking, that you're referring to is part of this handout?
Yes, it is.
And it's on the back page for the committee purposes?
Yes. And that is, and let me go up to this. That's one of the reasons why I brought the electronic version of the maps that you were presented, so we could actually flip back and forth. And I apologize, I had to do it very quickly given the limited time we had this morning. But I wanted to be able to show you a perspective, because I know when you're looking at prop maps, lining them up on a table, it's difficult to really compare the two. But if you can actually flip back and forth, you can see the improvement in coverage that's being generated from this. And again, as I mentioned, these are actual tools that we use to design our network. This is not to make a case in front of you as a legislative board. This is what we use to make sure we're providing the best possible coverage to our customers.
Val, do you have a question for the applicant or for the staff?
Applicant.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. The circle on the second map covers an area that is white on the previous map.
Yes.
Is that true? So the white area, there's no coverage?
It could be very limited coverage. Yep. Yep. So yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. That's an example of how the new tower will actually fill in an area that may have a single bar or may not have any signal whatsoever.
Go ahead, please.
So the one map has antennas oriented at 30, 150, and 270.
Mm-hmm.
The new tower has antennas oriented at 115, 210, and 340. Could the antennas on the existing tower be set at 115, 210, and 340?
Yes, they could be, and I'm so glad you brought that up. When we set up our antennas on a tower, naturally, we are setting them up to generate the best possible coverage we can get out of that tower. Now, that might be the orientation as far as the degree in the 360-degree circle. We can also tilt the antennas to try and, we're going to maximize that. And once we set up a tower, we will go back and adjust it. We're always trying to get the best possible service. Now, SBA has suggested, well, wait a minute, they're showing different orientations on the new tower. That's deceiving you. That's providing a different perspective. Unfortunately, that shows their limited knowledge on RF frequency engineering. And that's understandable. They are not a wireless carrier. They don't have a single customer to answer to. We have millions of customers we need to answer to. And when we set up that new tower, we're going to orientate those antennas to the best possible orientation to make sure that they give the greatest coverage. So yes, they are different. That's the reason why.
But if you change the orientation on the existing tower,
yep,
would that be the same as on the new tower?
No. Now, again, I'm not an RF engineer, but I did talk to our mobility folks this morning, and they said the antennas that are on the existing SBA are set up for the best possible coverage, which is depicted on that first slide. When we deploy the new tower, if granted by you, we will change the orientation. But again, it's to generate the best possible coverage. Thank you.
Lynn, you have a question for the applicant or for the staff?
For the applicant. In theory, in theory, would it be possible to modify or make changes on the SBA tower to provide this enhanced coverage? In theory.
I'm not an engineer, and I don't know the structural integrity of the tower, but it's my understanding that there are limitations to that tower.
So was that a yes, a no, or a maybe?
Let's just say at my level, I do not want to provide you a firm answer one way or another.
Okay, so what I'm thinking about, and perhaps you can help me this way, you're basing your argument on economic hardship, but you're unable to provide me with a comparison of what it would cost to improve the existing tower versus the extensive cost of a completely new tower and equipment. Is that correct?
Well, actually, we would love to provide you information as far as the actual economic burden. The problem we have is we have a non-disclosure agreement with SBA. We are willing to waive that agreement. SBA is not, which should give you an indication as to their motive in this situation. We would be happy to talk to you about the actual cost associated with remaining on the SBA tower, which could include a modification, although from what I'm being told, it does not have the capability to go to the height that we're at with the proposed tower. But we are basically being told by SBA that they will not waive the non-disclosure agreement with that lease. So we cannot delve into the details, but you do have a sworn statement from our engineers that are involved with this proceeding that have indicated that it's about a $2 million cost difference between the parallel agreement and what we have with SBA.
Okay.
Other questions by the committee? With the committee's permission, sir, and I'm referring to Exhibit X, which comes from a Jason Lasky. We received this late yesterday. I did by email, and we were handed a copy this morning, who is the zoning manager with SBA Communications Corporation. And I'll just read you the last two paragraphs. To provide an accurate coverage analysis to demonstrate the performance comparison between the existing co-location, in parentheses, AT&T on-air site, close parentheses, and the proposed tower, AT&T should provide revised maps that model, quote, like-for-like antenna orientations. The existing, quote, on-air AT&T antennas located at the SBA tower can be easily reoriented to any combination of azimuths or facing directions for each of the three sectors. I would take it those three sectors refer to the improvement in service. Don't know that, I'm not an RF engineer either. And then he closes with saying, at a minimum, we would request that the applicant further explain or clarify this discrepancy in the RF maps. How would you respond to that?
Sure, happy to. When we take a look at it, when we talk about sectors, we're actually talking about cellular service being sent out in three directions. A signal that's not a radio antenna that's being sent out in a uniform circular pattern. It's actually three sectors, three triangles on an antenna. And as I mentioned earlier, when we establish service in an area, in a tower, we're going to orientate those antennas to the best possible orientation to provide the greatest coverage. So that's what is on that SBA tower today. Now, if we reorientated those antennas as SBA suggests to the same orientation as the proposed site, what I'm being told by engineers, it will decrease the coverage. And that only seems logical, because why would we, on the current tower, set up the antennas in such a way to generate less than optimum coverage? It would make absolutely no sense to us. If we could adjust those antennas in such a way to improve the coverage on the tower, we would do it. That makes complete sense. But we have those set up the best possible way today. Now, the new tower, the orientation is slightly different. That is true. But if we adjusted the existing antennas to duplicate the same orientation as the new tower, the engineers are telling me the coverage will decrease.
Thank you.
Is that this final map? It's the same orientations on the two different towers.
This is the exhibit provided that I just spoke of.
I would prefer to be looking at the ones we submitted. I can't speak to that because it looks like it's blown up, maybe.
Well, it just shows similar orientations, and so I'm wondering.
For the record, Supervisor McAuliffe is referring to the final page of what is Exhibit X, which is a copy of an email from, as I mentioned, Jason Lasky, the zoning manager for SBA.
Right. Thank you. And I think what Jason is trying to represent here is that if you adjusted the antennas on the current SBA tower to the same orientation, that then you would have a more apples-to-apples comparison. And that's a fair, for somebody that doesn't really understand wireless communications and RF engineering, that would seem logical to me. But I point you back to what is the way we design our network, which is we design it for the best possible coverage for a particular site. So we're going to orientate those antennas to the best possible orientation to serve it. Now, is that going to be the same as a no location? No, doesn't necessarily be. But if we shifted the antennas on the existing SBA tower in order to have the same alignment, it would only be logical to suggest that that coverage is going to decrease. If you say, well, it wouldn't, then that would assume that we are intentionally setting up the antennas to provide less coverage than we have today. That would make no sense. So unfortunately, their argument on the surface seems like it has some legitimacy, but if you really understand how the network functions, it would make absolutely no sense for us to configure our existing antennas for poorer coverage than what we can get out of that existing tower. And it also highlights the fact that the existing tower just will not meet our needs. We can't get the coverage that we can achieve with the new tower from the existing ones, even if we orientated the antennas to the exact same orientation. Actually, it would likely provide less coverage based on that same logic.
Other questions of staff or applicant before we close the public hearing? Thank you, sir. Um, I ask the committee's permission to do that? Okay, so before, okay, so do we have any?
This is a member of the public. Yeah. This isn't an adversarial proceeding. I'm sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt, but
Yeah, please, Mr. Jonas.
I understand.
So do we have any more questions of the applicant by the committee or staff? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Brian, what say you?
I can tell you that this is a business meeting for this committee, and it's up to this committee to determine how you want that business meeting to be run. So you could certainly allow for someone else to provide information at this time. As he says, it's not an adversarial proceeding. I don't know if the committee has any further questions about what's been presented to them by Mr. Krawcheck, but it's certainly at the committee's prerogative how you wish to run your business meeting here.
Lynn?
Brian, would it be appropriate for us to ask someone to respond to what we've heard from the applicant?
You certainly could do that if that's the committee's desire and wishes.
Is it the committee's desire to allow Mr. Krawcheck to respond? Mr. Krawcheck, I'm going to allow you to respond. I ask you, we extended your time last time. Can you confine your remarks to a couple minutes?
I will keep it very brief. Thank you for allowing me to address some of this.
All right, please be brief and to the point.
All right. We've heard a lot of speculation today. I want to point out to you that the application submitted some time ago included an affidavit from Mr. Tim Brenner of AT&T dated January 4th of 2022. There were no RF maps submitted with the application. That didn't come until after we appeared at the town of Baraboo for the first Plan Commission meeting on June 6th, when I asked about coverage issues. Then AT&T produced the maps that you have today. We were told that these aren't what's provided for legislative purposes. It was absolutely provided for that purpose. They did not even think to address this in their initial application. All they talked about was economic burdens. All they talked about was the lease terms and how it was easier to work with Parallel on their leases. This is not about getting better coverage. SBA is ready, willing, and able to work with AT&T to accommodate their needs at the existing site. This is about, do you want to see 2 towers in a community when 1 will suffice? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public hearing matter of this, the public hearing portion of this matter is now closed. It is in your hands, committee. Mr. Spencer.
I sure would like to see some kind of burden, economic burden proof. There again, I have bad cell phone coverage at home, and I just, I guess I'm torn on this decision. That's all I want to say.
Lynn, please.
I have a couple thoughts. When I look at the area that they're suggesting that there's going to be improved coverage, they seem to be rather marginal in extent. And based on what I know of the area, very few people actually live in these areas of enhanced coverage. A lot of it is the mountain. I'm disappointed that the response about quantifying the economic impact or the financial burden, first he didn't have the information, then he had a number. So I'm not quite sure where that number came from. I think if we were to consider this on the criteria of economic burden, that in order for us to approve this, we should have more specific information on what are the dimensions and the nature of those economic burdens. As far as the enhanced coverage, I don't know how they come up with these circles. I do know a little bit about RF propagation and radars and things like that in my career. And I understand the argument about the orientation of the antenna from one location to another is really not a relevant article. Every unique location is going to have an optimum set of orientations, and that will not apply to any other location other than that particular one. So I don't credit that, but I just sense a lack of specificity in the economic burden and a lack of information about the benefit of these additional areas of coverage. I think if I were going to support this, I would want to see more clarification on both of those. I would be inclined not to approve this unless we had the kind of information I'm talking about. Thank you.
Further discussion by the committee? Dennis, please.
I tend to agree with Lynn from the standpoint that I would like to see more evidence on the economic aspect. However, I'm assuming that it is true. The gentleman from AT&T said that they're under a non-disclosure clause with SBA. And that's going to limit them, if that is the case, to be able to give us that economic. I come back to the three areas to be met under law, you know, improved service, economics. I'm at loss on the third one. And there again, I mean, I don't begin to understand RF. I do have, I do believe that when there is competition, the consumer benefits. And I know, like you say, you know, I was 3 miles from home yesterday and couldn't talk to my wife. You know, which some days has its advantages, but
This is being recorded, you realize that, right?
We'll get Robin a copy of this.
But, you know, we do have, and we are a diverse terrain, which adds to our problems here. And, you know, to set one tower and say it's going to cover a whole area, we know that's not going to be effective. And I do know, I call it the Baraboo Hill, going down into Badger Ordnance. I don't even make an attempt to answer a call or talk with anyone while I'm going through that area because I'm not going to have a signal. So.
Mr. Corporation Counsel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify for the committee that there's not 3 standards that have to be met. There's 3 separate areas that you can look at, and either one of those, if they're met, means that co-location would not be required. So there's 3 areas, and those are They would not result in the same mobile service functionality, coverage, and capacity. The second would be whether it's technically infeasible, or the third one would be it's economically burdensome to the mobile service provider. So any one of those being met means that the co-location on the current tower would not be required. I just want to be clear that you didn't have to meet all three of those to avoid the co-location requirements of the law, just so that we're straight and that the record's clear. And my conscience is clear that I told you.
Question on behalf of the committee, sir.
Yeah.
So there seems to be, I've heard from more than one committee member, if economically burdensome is a issue here. There isn't, at this point, the committee was not able to hear a definition or amount of that. There's also, as I read, competing positions about coverage, or even, I find it very difficult to judge coverage on blurred maps, not knowing, I think one committee member put forward, these three circles, what exactly are we covering? Are we, covering fields? Are we covering campgrounds? Are we covering whatever? What ability does this committee have to, I guess, clarify those matters?
And by clarify, what do you mean? I mean, I don't see any of the economic.
Obtain additional, to obtain a definition of the economic burden or coverage.
Well, as far as the economic burden, I don't think this committee has any ability to require SBA to, I guess, void the confidentiality portion of their agreement. That's part of the agreement that, it's a separate contractual agreement that the government has no say in. So I don't think that we can require that as the government. As far as the coverage question, I'm not an RF guy either. I don't know how or if that could be further clarified. I can tell you that under the law, as one of the attorneys spoke, I'm not sure which one it was, that there's really only, I think, one case that pertains to this mobile sighting, tower sighting law, and it doesn't really define what would constitute better coverage. It doesn't say it has to reach 10 more people. It doesn't say it has to cover 3 campgrounds. So it's kind of one of those issues where I talked about earlier is, do you have substantial evidence that's been provided to you that you can rely on that shows that there is better coverage put forth by the applicant's proposed tower, which would mean that co-location wouldn't be required. So,
thank you.
I don't know if that helped, but yeah.
Other questions for the council before we leave him?
I'll be here still if you have more.
Okay, but go ahead, Val.
You said wouldn't be required,
Right.
but can be allowed?
Can be allowed as far as a separate tower site can be allowed? Yes, one of the reasons to allow for a new tower site is that you wouldn't get the same, you'd get better, or you wouldn't get the same, I guess better is not the word they use, same mobile service functionality. So you'd get, yeah,
Just doing the wording.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Discussion by the committee further. Val, please.
Thank you. I would only like to say that I think that we have to assume that folks are giving us the data that that it's honest data. One of the key areas that provides more coverage is down at that southwest side of Devil's Lake, which is pretty critical.
Dennis, please.
And maybe somebody can clarify my understanding from the standpoint of the town. The town voted not to approve this But I'm hearing that they're basically deferring it to us.
Correct. Did you not state that earlier, Morgan?
If you have any more questions of the town, I'd be happy to answer.
It's closed, I'm sorry.
That's fine, I just want clarification.
Lynn, please.
Point of order, that, I don't think we're deferring to the town. The town can make a recommendation, but it actually is up to this committee.
Pardon? If you'd speak into the mic, please.
I'm sorry. Just as a point of fact, the town can make a recommendation, but in fact, we're not deferring or confirming the town. It's really solely our decision.
Dennis, please.
Yeah, you're correct. We do tend to put, or in the past, put, a fair amount of consideration onto what the towns.
And rightly so.
Yeah. And that's why, I'm saying that I think the town has listened, but what I'm getting is they're throwing it to us. Well, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, please.
I guess we can sit here all day and look at each other, so I'm going to throw something out here. I believe that some of the points have been met by the applicant, and therefore I would move to approve the application based on the finding and the merits of law in this decision.
Okay, so based on the findings of facts and conclusion of law, and one of the three legs, at least, that Corporation Counsel advised us on?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, what
Yes,
specific is that?
based on the findings of matter and conclusion of law, and on the fact that I believe that there is a reasonable assumption that there is a financial consideration, and also that it appears that there can be added coverage that would not be allowed or would not be feasible or possible under the existing agreement.
So in other words, that co-location will not provide the same coverage benefit?
Correct.
Is that suitable with you, Brian?
Yes, you just might want to restate that so it's clear for the record.
Yes. I will if I get a second.
I'll second that
Seconded by McAuliffe.
with the same caveats.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve a petition for a mobile tower siting based upon the conclusion of law and findings of facts contained in the staff report, with this petition being approved due to the fact that non-approval presents an economic burden, and also that co-location on the existing tower does not achieve the same coverage. Is that suitable? Discussion on the motion. Lynn, please.
So, just so to be clear, approving the motion is in fact a statement that the evidence and information presented sufficiently supports the assertion of economic hardship and asserts or affirms that there was adequate information or evidence presented that there will be an improvement of coverage that's not possible from the existing tower.
Correct.
All right.
Other discussion on the motion? Other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion on the motion? I would like to offer an amendment. I normally don't do this, but I'm questioning the first leg of the stool, and that is that we have achieved a clear understanding of an economic burden here. So I would amend that to delete the fact that that we are basing this on an economic burden, but we'll go along with the fact that co-location does not allow for the increase in coverage.
Second.
Seconded by McAuliffe. Discussion on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Dennis?
Yeah, I have some concerns with that. I think that AT&T is willing to provide us with the information, however, they're in a non-disclosure clause with SBA. And I saw nowhere from SBA or the gentleman that spoke for them saying that they were willing to open their books on that.
And I guess to answer, that's why I proposed the amendment, because I don't believe that that was achievable.
Okay.
I don't believe that definition is obtainable at this point. Lynn, please.
So if the amendment is adopted, then the basic motion will be that adequate evidence and information were presented to convince us that there will be an improvement of coverage that could not be achieved by modifying the existing tower.
By co-location on the existing tower. That is correct.
So that we have evidence that the existing tower could not be modified to provide that same coverage.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, you've heard the motion, the second, to amend the original motion to remove the point that proof of economic burden has been substantiated. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment passes unanimously. Now we are back to the amended motion. With the committee's permission, once again, I don't like speaking as chair, but something resonates with me about the existing tower. And I'm not an RF engineer, but it makes sense. I do not believe that any U.S. Cellular, AT&T, you name it, Sprint, would orient a antenna so you could cover less. That just doesn't make sense. And so, that's why I believe that, that based on their data, that co-location will not allow for improved service. Other discussion on the amended motion? Lynn, please.
I agree with your statement about the orientation of the antennas, but there are other modifications that could be done as close improving the power of the signal. There are other modifications that could be performed other than reorienting the antennas, which I completely agree with the notion that they are in the best orientation they could be right now. But there are other ways to enhance the coverage, but they cost money.
Thank you. Other discussion on the amended motion? Any other discussion on the amended motion? If not, you've heard the motion and the second to approve petition 19-2022 from Scott Lytle, agent for parallel infrastructure, to consider a conditional use permit pursuant to 7.038, paragraph 9, subparagraph I, for a mobile tower siting on land owned by Donald and David Fulkerson, located in the town of Baraboo. This approval is based on the findings of facts and conclusion of law provided in the staff report and on proof of the fact that co-location on the existing mobile tower cannot achieve the improved service that is noted that AT&T is put forward. Sufficient, Corporation Counsel?
Yeah, does your motion then include the conditions of permit that?
Yes, and the conditions as specified in the staff report. Sufficient?
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 4 in favor, 1 against. We move on to item 9C, petition 20-2022, petition to consider a conditional use permit pursuant to 7.027, paragraph 10, subparagraph G, to operate a sawmill. Said conditional use is located in the town of Westfield, Sauk County, with lands affected by the proposed conditional use located in part of the southeast 1/4, southwest 1/4, section 30, town 11 north, range 4 east, in the town of Westfield, and is further described in petition 20-2022. The tax parcel identification number is 040-0645-00000. Has this matter been legally noticed?
Yes.
If the staff would read the notice, please.
Please take notice that the Land Resource and Environment Committee of the Sauk County Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing July 26, 2022 at 9:15 or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard in the county boardroom at the Sauk County West Square Building in the city of Baraboo to consider petition 20-2022, a petition to consider conditional use permit pursuant to S 7.027, paragraph 10, subparagraph G, for a sawmill on land owned by Norman, Mass. Said conditional use is located in the town of Westfield, Sauk County. Lands affected by the proposed conditional use are located in part of the southeast quarter, southwest quarter, section 30, town 11 north, range 4 east, town of Westfield, as further described in the petition 2022. Tax parcel identification number 040-0645-00000.
Thank you. If the staff would proceed with the report.
Yep, Will Christensen, LRE staff. As noted, this is a request from Norman Mast, herein referred to as the applicant, to consider a conditional use permit for a sawmill. The property is located near the intersection of Friendship Drive and Eli Valley Road in the town of Westfield. A bit of background, the applicant would like to start a sawmill on the property to purchase logs to produce into firewood. The application states the firewood will be bundled and sold wholesale. The applicant would like to construct a 60-foot by 100-foot pole shed for the sawmill operation. There would also be some filling and grading around the structure to convert a portion of the agricultural field into a driveway and parking area to accommodate the larger vehicles. The workforce will consist of 5 employees, which would be family members. The application contains additional material information on the business proposal. The current zoning is exclusive agriculture. The zoning will remain the same. Relevant plans include Town of Westfield Comp Plan and Sauk County Comp Plan.
This type of use falls under flex parking requirements, which do not have specified regulations, provided the applicant demonstrates sufficient parking space is available to allow vehicles to park safely without obstructing traffic. The application states that the existing driveway will be widened to accommodate larger vehicles such as delivery trucks. The site plan shows a large graveled area around the proposed sawmill, which will accommodate parking and traffic flow. County records indicate a mound septic system is installed on the property in 2012 for the residential dwelling owned by the applicant. There's also a well on the property. As noted, there's an existing field road to Eli Valley Road that is to be used for access to the sawmill. The application does not indicate additional lighting necessary for the business, and the disturbance appears to be under 1 acre, which does not require additional stormwater permitting from the DNR. In reviewing the conditional use, the agency shall follow these standards from section 7.151, parent 5. Parent A, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the proposed use may not be detrimental to or endanger public safety, health, general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands. Staff comment, the closest dwellings are greater than 1,000 feet of the proposed sawmill use. The application shows a vegetative buffer which will reduce noise and visual impacts from the road and surrounding properties. The application states the proposed hours of operation are Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. The operation hours may be adjusted by LRE committee's discretion. Does not appear the proposed sawmill use will endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. Parent B, the use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be compatible and be appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. Staff comment is that the surrounding area is characterized primarily by agricultural uses. The application states a 60-foot by 100-foot pole shed is proposed, which is consistent with other agricultural structures. There are other agricultural structures on the property. Vegetative buffer will be created to reduce noise and visual impacts. The sawmill use does not appear to impair or diminish use, value, or enjoyment of existing or future permitted uses in the area. In reviewing the conditional use, the agency shall consider the following criteria from section 7.151, parent 6. Parent A, the erosion potential of the site based on topography, drainage, slope, soil type, and vegetative cover, and mitigation of erosion potential. Staff comment, the property and surrounding areas have a low slope, approximately 2% to 7%. The proposed sawmill location and associated grading is not an existing drainage way. The proposal shows a vegetative buffer on the north, east, and west sides of the operation with existing screening on the south side of the operation. Parent B, the prevention and control of water pollution, including sedimentation and potential impacts on floodplains and wetlands. Staff comment is that there are no mapped wetlands, waterways, or floodplains within 300 feet of the proposed sawmill. Impacts to surface waters, floodplains, and wetlands are not a concern with this proposal. Parent C, whether the site has adequate utilities, including acceptable disposal system. Staff comment, there is a well and septic on the property associated with the dwelling. Parent D, whether the site has access to roads and highways, the property has existing access to Eli Valley Road. Parent E, whether the site has suitable ingress and egress. Staff comment is that the application suggests the driveway is 30 feet wide and suitable for ingress and egress for larger delivery trucks. The town of Westfield has provided communication that a driveway permit is required for the driveway. Parent F, the site is designed to minimize traffic congestion and potential effects on traffic flow. Staff comment, the plans show a driveway that loops around the sawmill operation to keep traffic flowing. In reviewing the conditional use, the agency shall consider the following secondary standards for a sawmill from section 7.048. Parent A, there shall be no retail sales other than products produced on the premises. Staff comment, the applicant is aware of this condition and it is a recommended condition. Parent B, deleterious materials such as accumulated slabs, decayed wood, sawdust, and sawmill refuse. Shavings or waste material of any kind shall be handled according to a management plan submitted to the zoning administrator and approved by the agency. Staff comment, the application states that most of the waste will be used to heat a kiln used to dry the firewood, and that the additional waste material will be used for animal bedding. Parent C, no sawmill operation shall burn substances by open burning. Staff comment, the applicant is aware of this requirement and it is a recommended condition. Parent D, no storage of logs, lumber, deleterious substances, or equipment of any kind shall be permitted within the building setback area. Staff comment, the site plan shows where logs storage will be on the property which meets minimum setbacks. Parent E, hours of operation and days shall be specified as a condition of the conditional use by the agency. So staff comment on this one, the applicant requests to operate the sawmill Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Staff recommendation is to consider adjusting these hours to a start time of not earlier than 7 a.m. But again, it's up to the committee, but Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Parent F, sawmills located on the premises for more than 365-day period shall meet the vegetative buffer requirements of section 7.042. Staff comment, the application describes a vegetative buffer to be created and it is shown on the site plan. All right, so the town of Westfield did provide a town recommendation on July 11th, 2022. The town of Westfield Board of the Town of Westfield recommended approval of the conditional use permit for the sawmill with the condition that the owner gets a driveway permit from the township. Staff recommendation, based on the information provided and the analysis of section 7.151, parent 5 and 6, and section 7.048 of the Sauk County Code of Ordinances, staff submits that the application meets the standards and requirements for a conditional use permit to be approved. The department recommends approval of this application. Should the LRE committee choose to approve the conditional use permit, staff would recommend that the following conditions be considered. A, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the proposed use may not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands. B, the use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be compatible and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity, and that such use may not change the essential character of the area by impairing or diminishing the use, value, or enjoyment. C, the conditional use shall be established and constructed in accordance with the plans and specifications and information provided as part of the record to the LRE committee on July 26, 2022. D, the property owner shall apply for and be issued a land use permit by the department pursuant to Sauk County Code, section 7.153. E, sales of products and goods shall be of products and goods produced on the premises. F, waste material shall be handled according to the management plan submitted to the zoning administrator and approved by the agency. G, no burning of substances related to the sawmill use by open burning. H, no storage of logs, lumber, deleterious substances, or equipment of any kind shall be permitted within the building setback area. I, the vegetative buffer shall be created and described in the application within 365 days of establishing the sawmill use. J, hours of operation shall be Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. K, a stormwater permit from the Wisconsin DNR shall be required if the land disturbance is greater than 1 acre is required by the project. L, a driveway permit from the town of Westfield be issued and a copy provided as part of the land use permit application. M, failure to comply with the standards and conditions of this conditional use permit may result in revocation of said permit in order for removal of any structures or discontinuance of any use thereby permitted by the conditional use permit by the LRE committee. N, if a conditional use is not initiated by securing a land use permit within 365 days of approval, the conditional use is considered void. And again, the department recommendation is to approve petition 20-22, which would be a motion to approve the requested conditional use based upon the findings of fact and conclusion of law subject to staff analysis and conditions as noted herein.
Questions on the staff report? Any questions on the staff report for Will? Thanks, Will. If the applicant would come forward, please. Good morning, sir. If you would state your name and address for the record.
Norman Mast, E5144, Friendship Drive, Loganville, Wisconsin.
Thank you. You have an opportunity now to speak to the committee regarding your request.
Just business for my family, and that's about all I have to say.
Thank you. Questions by the committee for the applicant? Any questions by the committee for the applicant? With the committee's permission, I guess I take it you are, but your original request was for operating hours of 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. The conditions have shortened that from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Do you have any problem or disagreement with that?
Sure, that's okay.
Do you intend to live by those, in those parameters, or operate within those hours?
Okay, you say that if I'd have a dry kiln and I'd have to change wood around, it wouldn't make any racket or anything. Would that matter? Or is that, like noise, or is that like?
Will, do you wish to speak to that, please?
I think the intent of that use is not so much for, sweeping up messes or whatever. It's the intent of having delivery trucks and running loud machinery for your hours of operation.
I think that's the concern, is not quiet maintenance or whatever, but just operation of the sawmill operation. Do you have any problem with the hour set of 7 a.m. to 4 p.m.?
That's okay.
Thank you. Any other questions by the committee for the applicant? Thank you, Norman. I do not believe we have a representative from the town of Westfield here. Unless you're doing double duty, Robin? No? Okay. Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak in favor of petition number 20-2022? Is there anyone else, any member of the public who wishes to speak in favor of petition 20-2022? Seeing no such requests, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak in opposition to this request? Is there any member of the public present who wishes to speak in opposition to petition 20-2022? Seeing no such requests, is there anyone who wishes to appear as an interested party to petition 20-2022? Is there anyone that wishes to speak or appear as an interested party to petition 20-2022? Seeing no such requests, as we move towards closing the public hearing portion of this matter, is there any member of the public who has not had an opportunity to speak, who wishes to provide comment to petition 20-2022? For the second time, Is there any member of the public who has not had an opportunity to speak, who wishes to enter comment on petition 20-2022? For the third and final time, is there any member of the public who has not had an opportunity to speak yet, who wishes to provide comment on petition 20-2022? Hearing no requests. Before we close the public hearing, committee, do you have any questions of the staff or the applicant? Does the committee have any disagreement or question on the findings of fact or staff report or the conditions set for this conditional use permit? Seeing no requests by the committee to speak, the public hearing portion of this matter is closed. Committee is in your hands. Val?
Move to approve the petition.
Moved by McAuliffe to approve, seconded by Spencer. Discussion on the motion to approve. Any discussion on the motion to approve?
That would include the additional conditions as stated.
Yes. Second agrees?
Yes.
Seeing or hearing no request to speak by the committee, you've heard the motion and the second to approve a conditional use permit. To approve petition 20-2022 for a conditional use permit pursuant to 7.027 paragraph 10 subparagraph G for operation of a sawmill located in the town of Westfield. This approval is based on the findings of facts and conclusion of law contained in the staff report and is subject to the conditions as set in that staff report, which include hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Conditional use is unanimously approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Mast, for your attendance this morning and your patience. Item number 10, discussion and possible approval of a reduced access easement with pursuant to 22.15 of the Sauk County Land Division and Subdivision Regulation Ordinance. This request is located in Section 36, Town 12 North, Range 5 East in the town of Delona, with a tax parcel identification number of 006-0844-00000.
Okay, for the benefit of the newer committee members, whenever a new lot is created under the county's land division ordinance, every new lot must have frontage or access to a public right-of-way, like a state, town, county highway, that kind of thing, or an access easement. Ordinance also specifies that any access easement that provides access to a new proposed lot should have a minimum width of 40 feet unless a lesser width is approved by this
Move to approve.
Moved by Palivka to approve, seconded by McAuliffe. Discussion.
The town looked at this and.
Pardon?
The town looked at this and had no issues with it. This is actually, has been an informal easement for forever, and this had to happen because of the split.
Thank you.
That over the septic system.
Any other discussion on the motion to approve? Any other discussion on the motion to approve? If not, you've heard the motion and the second to approve a reduced access easement from 40 feet to 30 feet pursuant to 22.15 of the Sauk County Land Division and Subdivision Regulation Ordinance located in the town of Delona. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. The motion passes unanimously. Our next meeting dates are August 11th on a Thursday and Tuesday, August 23rd. So if there's no other business to legally come before this committee, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn at noon. Moved by Eberl, seconded by McAuliffe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.